Hi everyone. This is poem number 5, my poem number 5 for Poetry Against the Plague, but also my poem number 2 for the series of poems that I've chosen from Songs of Ourselves, an anthology of women's writings in English. Um, a set of poems that I've chosen which I feel are important to listen to again at this time when we're talking about inequality and poverty and um, what that means in relation to those of us who have the privilege to acknowledge it and see it for what it is, um, which is to say that we see how, especially in a time of crisis, we see how we have been complicit in this kind of systemic oppression and violence. Um, the first poem I read for this series was Street Urchin by Tita Lacambra Ayala. The second poem was written in 1987 by Rosa Maria Magno. And I remember reading this in 1996 or 97 for a class on Filipino women writers in English. And I felt like um, I didn't quite understand why it had gathered together all these three stories. But now, 2 decades after, it seems to make more sense to me. And so I felt like it was an important poem to include um, in this set. So this is entitled Triptych by Rosa Maria Magno. Number 1. School teacher in Tondo. She knows why the children wear no shoes. One has feet full of sores, another has no feet at all. For others, shoes are last in the priority of needs. And the few who have the luxury of choice, they'd rather keep their shoes for the Sunday Mass. The way to the church is not as muddy as the streets leading to the schoolhouse. She knows why their stares are blank. One has had no breakfast, another has had no sleep. He had to take care of his ailing mother while his sister was out peddling her wares into the night. Others cannot wait to apply their blackboard addition and subtraction to pesos and cents. They'd rather be newsboys or flower vendors or cigarette peddlers, and why not beggars too, so that they may also know the taste of meat. She knows her lot is not much better, but she is lucky. Next week she flies to Jeddah. Number 2. Bargain Basement Bertha. A bookkeeper assistant during weekdays. On weekends, a janitress. Nights, a babysitter. Bargain Basement Bertha. Every payday sifts through hundreds of seconds for gifts to send home to folks. Proud and eager to show off goodies made in USA. Soon, her bargain-debased body, encased in a crate, shall be shipped to the PI, where the grieving folks shall bury her along with their crushed dreams. Number 3. Filipino Cinderellas. The magic wand must have been crooked, or the fairy godmother was. For why did the dreams of our Cinderellas, who flew to foreign lands to meet their Princess Charming, turn to ash? The magic must have been short of power, or else some lines had crossed. For why did the Prince Charming turn out to be the rat in our tale and the Cinderella the squash? Oh, how many Cinderella dreams have been woven by newspaper ads, only to be exploded as maids and future brides are exploited by foreign hands. As I said earlier, this was written in 1987, and I I think one of the things that there were two things that made this that made me choose this poem. One was the fact that the parallel stories, while they could have happened to three different people, could have also just happened to one person. And I feel that this is what I missed out on the first time I read this poem. That this could be three women or one woman who experiences all of these stories, to me is telling of the fact that in terms of the systems that oppress us, that the experience is actually based on the same thing. The school teacher who suffers, given the neglect of the educational system, and the OFW who has to keep 3-4 jobs, just to be able to send back money, even when it might mean going home in a coffin, and the mail order bride who imagines that the only way she can get out of poverty is to marry a stranger. All these stories are really based on just the very basic fact of need, a need that the current systems cannot fill, or which these systems refuse to fill. And so these are the stories of three women, or maybe just the story of one woman, and how no matter what she did, no matter the choices she was making, the system itself wasn't on her side. And so it just meant being stuck in this endless cycle of violence and oppression. The other thing that I felt was important was how, in the case of this poem, the poet was obviously distant from the experience of the woman she was talking about. And this is something that's in many of the writings, especially of writers in English, because language itself, because the use of this language is already removed from this experience of poverty and inequality. And so, but in the case of Rosa Maria Magno, the decision was not to draw conclusions about a life that she didn't know. Instead, she used the poem as a way not just to tell a story, but to ask questions about this particular life that she wanted to talk about. And I feel that this is really what we're missing at this point. We're at a point where we feel like the goal is to already draw conclusions, but I feel like we're not really asking a lot of questions. And I think questions are even more critical now, given how much information we have access to, and how much that information can also be controlled and used against us. And so I hope that in the course of this crisis, and especially after it, when we all have the energy to talk about what to do next, and the kind of society we want to build, that we are able to see those questions and take stock of them, before we try and find the answers. So this is poem number 2 in this series, poem number 5 in this Poetry Against the Plague. And until next poem.